I want to talk about one of the core concepts that I teach parents of sensitive kids regarding creatively solving the problems that your kids might be bringing to you. So, if your child is stuck in a meltdown cycle, they might be hitting, kicking, screaming, yelling, throwing things, running away, then this message is for you, especially if your child is demonstrating this behavior on a daily or multiple times a day or even multiple times a week basis, even if they are around age 4. So we're talking about children who are, 3.5 to 4 or up, right? So especially if your child is over the age of 4, this behavior is not developmentally appropriate because we want to see sensitive kids. These are kids who are gifted, extremely bright, extremely clever, processing a lot of information from the world. They may have sensory overwhelm, be emotionally reactive, but this is not because that's part of their personality. It's because of a skill gap. And so the sensitive temperament that your child has could be combined with ADHD, or they may fit level 1 criteria of autism. So if you're parenting a child where you're wondering these criteria might fit your kiddo, then this is definitely the show for you. If you've just found me, hi, I'm Megan Thompson, licensed clinical professional counselor, registered play therapist supervisor, and here on this show, you will find me telling you what works to parent sensitive kids and stop the extreme behaviors that you may be seeing in your household. And so I want to make sure that we're all clear that developmentally, children over the age of 4 should not be demonstrating meltdowns on a regular basis. When I say regular, I mean daily, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. What is a meltdown? A meltdown is a extreme out of control behavior that your child is demonstrating for over 5 minutes. Maybe even, 10, 15, 30 minutes long, way too long for a child to feel emotionally out of control. And this is important because your kid could also be stuck in the meltdown cycle, even if they have a peak of emotional intensity, and then your child is just irritable all day long. So one of the things that we teach our clients is that your child is really struggling in the meltdown cycle, and you might think that they go from 0 to 60 on a daily basis, but I got to be honest with you, kids stuck in a meltdown cycle, they're not going from 0 to 60, they're not going from 0 to 100, they're going from 59 to 60, they're going from 99 to 100, and they are bubbling underneath the surface, and then all of a sudden it starts to boil. So think about the emotional simmering that your child is experiencing on a daily basis, and I really want you to ask yourself, have you ever laughed while also experienced emotional turmoil inside, internal emotional turmoil? Like you're worried about your mom, or you're worried about your extended family, or you're worried about how you're going to meet the deadline at work while also get your kids to soccer practice, right? So these might be challenges that in the moment you're allowed to find fleeting happiness, fleeting joy, and yet you're still feeling overwhelmed. You're still simmering under the surface. And this is important because if you're a parent of a sensitive kid who's stuck in the meltdown cycle, you might have the false belief that your child is going from 0 to 60, that they are demonstrating Jekyll and Hyde behavior. You might have even heard of other influencers, mommy bloggers, even therapists who don't specialize in this temperament trait, talking about the behaviors that your child is showing only at home, only in certain circumstances. And one thing that we teach our clients is that your child is demonstrating subtle signals of this emotional overwhelm all day long. And what's great is once you learn how to be the detective your child needs, then you can teach your child to be way more overt in discussing their needs and more direct and more effective at communicating their needs, because direct does not mean effective. Anybody parenting a kiddo who's sensitive, you might have a direct kid, but they're not being directly kind, right? So I want to make sure that we're talking about effective communication skills, effective emotion regulation skills, and that means that your child is advocating for their needs throughout the day with adults that are not you. When they're overwhelmed, they're telling their peers, hey, leave me alone. They're not feeling like in the moment when they're being mistreated by peers that their only option is to explode and then withhold that option because they know that they would get in bigger trouble in public settings. than if they were to have this experience at home. So they hold in that only available option, and they just turn up the heat internally, right? So it is not a sign for your kid that they are demonstrating emotional health and that they are doing just fine if they are only having meltdowns at home. So this is point number one, where we're talking about creatively breaking out of the meltdown cycle, sustainably breaking out of the meltdown cycle, strategically breaking out of the meltdown cycle. You need to know that your child is struggling more than you think they are. And this is good news, because what it means is that your kid is not a sociopath, that your kid does not hold it all in and wait for you manipulatingly and seeking attention, right? So especially, we hear this often for parents in a two-parent pair, where one parent is like wondering about these things and another parent has read more parenting books, has learned more about child development. And it can feel really tricky if you are trying to convince your spouse of what you've learned, right? And so I want this podcast show to be helpful for both parents in a two-parent pair, no matter your priority role in the household, whether that's in managing the household finances and income and the lawn and all of the logistics around household management, or if it is your primary role is to manage the children. And that's for dual working parents or not, right? So as parents in a two-parent pair, it's inevitable that both parents will uniquely, equally impact the children. And so it is important for you to have your own role without having to believe that you have to fulfill the role of your spouse. And it's much easier for the two of you to get on the same page if you recognize that you have different perspectives, you're different people, and you help yourself get educated about sensitive kids and how they experience the world and what helps them effectively and efficiently stop the meltdown cycle. And so the efficiency is the next thing that we're going to talk about. Creatively solving this problem requires you to focus on efficiency. Sensitive kids zero in on what they're experiencing right then and there, and they need to be able to feel confident and capable with you, and they're not going to be able to do that if you are struggling to parent them for months to years. They're going to eventually start using language that is self-deprecating, because your sensitive kid will pack on historical reference that they've been struggling for a long time. And for a 6-year-old, a long time has been 6 months, right? That's 1/12 of their life. So think about it like that. It is important for you to see that you need to make clear and specific and strategic change now, because your child has referenced struggling more often than they've referenced not struggling, based on how long they've had their memory and how long they've been conscious to this challenge. So act fast is number 2. And then number 3 is imitate before you innovate. So one of the things that is important about creative problem solving is that you need to understand that if you don't have a strategy to break out of the meltdown cycle, it is going to keep you stuck if you start throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And the best way to throw things at the wall to see what sticks is to start trying to use tactics like teaching your kid to take a deep breath, or playing a feelings game, getting something on Amazon. That's a tactic. That's a tool. It's not a strategy. So if you start thinking strategically, noticing, when is my child ready to play feelings games? How do I invite my child to play feelings games? What does my child need in their routine in order to be available to learn when we have feelings games time? How do I communicate to my child that I understand them? Then the use of the sentences that come out of your mouth to demonstrate that you understand them, like validation statements, those are sentences, those are tools. The use of those tools, the use of those tactics lands, right? So the delivery of the tool matters more often than the actual tool yourself. And what helps you deliver your tools more efficiently? Critical thinking skills, the ability to think about how your child is developing, where their skills are lacking, and then also what skills they need to learn first before they learn the next one. We all know that sensitive kids need to learn how to crawl before they walk, and walk before they run. And yet, I hear tons of parents telling me their kids need to learn to keep their hands to themselves before they learn to advocate with a teacher to ask for help, right? For example, right? Or I need to focus on the fact that my kid's not keeping their hands to themselves before I teach them to take space and regulate their everyday challenges. I need to target the fact that my kid's hitting right now, as the highest priority in the household, because that's the most dangerous. And there needs to be a proper way to address that, because you can't just go head on to the fire when you're walking on crumbling wood, right, in a burning house. So anyways, I want to give you the opportunity to learn more about the common mistakes that parents of sensitive kids make. Go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/3 mistakes. That's the number 3, the word mistakes, and you'll get to watch a free training. It's over an hour, a little over an hour, and you'll learn more about what we teach, what you need to learn, how you need to be thinking about this problem, and why thinking about this problem differently allows you to take different action that will implore you to change the dynamic in your household much faster than the typical traditional route. Typical traditional route is years of therapy, either that or twice a week appointments for at least a year. So I encourage you to ask yourself whether or not you would be feeling much better and your life would have a much vaster ripple effect of positivity if you worked on figuring out how to solve this in as little as 8 weeks. And we teach our clients how to do that very often. All right, so go ahead and watch that training. Go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/3 mistakes. I look